Today is
Morning, sir.
good morning. Today's prestige session. I think only two of you are here, so let's just wait a little bit more, maybe 2-3 minutes, to see uh, if anybody else joins.
There's
So,
just one more person we're expecting, sir.
oh, only
Usually
three of
just
us?
three of us. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fantastic. Then let's just wait for him or her. And
Yes, sir.
meanwhile, why don't
I'm
you
doing
open
so.
your video and just introduce yourself?
Sir, I'm trying to reach the other person. Just give me a minute.
That's okay. And let him join.
Let her
You
first.
okay? Let her join. You just introduce yourself. Nandini, if you want to go ahead, please do.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
So my name is Nandini Singh, and I live in Sonipat.
Oh, you are from Sonipat.
Yes,
Okay, local. That's good.
yes, sir.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, so which school were you in?
So till 10th grade, I was in DPS Sonipat, and then for 11th, 12th, I was studying in Hindu Vidyapeeth local school.
Okay, okay. And why did you join the BASSP program? There must be some reason or career goal or objective, something.
So initially, I was searching for something that is quite. Then I came across this course. It was very well structured. I initially grew interest in it. That's why I joined it.
In class 11-12, what stream or what subject combination did you study?
So I had medical.
Medical in class 11-12? I mean,
Yes, I was a medical student, sir.
class 11-12.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you elaborate? Because I have no idea about that. I mean, what do you mean by medical student in class 11 and 12? Do you mean you had PMC or what?
PCB.
Uh,
PCB, sir.
PC
I had PCB.
PCB. So you studied PCB, but you were intending to join medical after that.
Initially, that was the plan, but
No,
in
that's okay.
after
That's okay.
I lost interest in biology, so that's it.
No, that's okay. What I got confused with was you said in class 11-12 you were a student of medical, so I was confused about that. So you had PCB, that's perfectly fine, but then you wanted to change your stream. That's okay. That clears my confusion. That's all. Okay, so anyway, welcome to our program. And what about you? I think Teja, right? Yeah, Teja. Do you like to be called Teja or others or what? I think he is trying to either. Okay, he is gone. All right. Anyway, I'm not sure what is happening. It looks like only me and you. Uh,
Sir, I'll try and reach out to them.
well, that's okay. Okay, if you can do, please do. Otherwise, we will discuss whatever we want to.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sir. We're
Te-
having power cuts. I'm really sorry.
No, that's okay. Power cut is I mean, when we are from home and it's not necessary that all of us have backup. So
Yes, sir.
we can't help it. So that's fine. I was trying to get hold of you to get your introduction.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, the question that I asked just the moment before you logged off, do you like to be? I mean, what is your actual name, Teja or others? What? How do you like to be addressed?
Teja, sir.
Okay, Teja. Okay, where are you from? And
I'm
all
from
that.
Andhra Pradesh, sir. Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. It's a
Okay.
very relatively small city.
Hmm.
And I was always very interested in politics right from my 8th and 9th grade. I
Okay.
was always concentrated on civics. I used to be very active when civics lessons used to come up.
Okay.
So I was invested in politics. But in my when the decision came when I had to choose for subjects for 11th and 12th grade, there were very few options for me. Especially in the southern states, the state boards are relatively more common than the central board. So there
Hmm.
were very less CBSE schools available, and even in those schools, the most that were offered were PCB and PCM. So it was very hard finding a school which was offering political science. So I had to go out of the city.
Hmm.
I had to travel an hour every day up and down to go to a school which actually had political science.
Okay.
And during that, I was introduced to Model United Nations.
Okay.
As I was traveling to different ours is a small city, and no MUNs were there. Nobody even knew about MUNs. So I had to travel to Chennai, Bangalore, Bombay, and different places, Bombay, Bangalore, everywhere to participate in conferences. And that was when I was introduced to Mr. Aaron Mirza. He was the Youth Congress president of Karnataka, and he was the one who introduced me to policy. He saw my work, he saw me, he heard me speaking, and he was like, "You are a very good, you are a good politics student, but you are not a good politician. You are an analyst. Research is what suits you more than political rhetoric. You are a
Okay.
great speaker, so I think you will be more." He suggested me towards policy. So as the more I've been researching about it, the more I've loved it. I fell in love with it. And I was supposed to go to London School of Economics, but due to financial issues, my father couldn't afford sending me. Due to the pandemic, our business was heavily destroyed.
Of course.
So,
Hmm.
and Jindal was the best option in India. So
Very
that
good.
is why I'm Jindal.
Of course, from the point of view of an academician, I'm sorry that you could not go to London School of Economics. But from the point of view of a faculty of Jindal School of Government and Public Policy, I'm glad that you have joined us.
Thank you so much.
So it's an ambivalent situation.
Yes, sir.
On one hand, as an independent academician, I would definitely would have liked you to go to London School, but I'm glad that you joined us
Yes, sir.
instead. Okay.
It was an
Uh,
unfortunate situation. We
of
couldn't do
course it
anything.
is. Of course. I mean, although I don't know, I mean, did not know you at that point of time, but if I got to know that a student from India has gone to LSE, that would have made me very happy. But since that did not happen, let's do the next best thing.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I guess it's, I think one of your friend has joined as well. Yes, it looks like, no, that's Lalit. Lalit has joined and Mani has joined as well. Hello, Mani. Good morning. No, Mani has gone back. So it looks like only two of us are here. So let me just do what we are trained to do as faculty. So let me take 20 minutes of your time and lecture you a little, and then we will open the forum for discussion if you have any question. All right. So let me try to share my screen first. All right. So as I was saying earlier, that welcome to this prestige session. Now, briefly about myself. As you already know, my name is KRISHANU and I am originally from Calcutta. I'm an associate professor and assistant dean of examination and assessment at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy. Before joining General School, I did my PhD in public policy from Georgia Institute of Technology and Georgia State University. It was a dual degree program, or rather joint program, not dual degree as such. It was a single degree but jointly from these two universities. Both are two different universities. Before that, I did a couple of MAs in economics, one from Georgia State University, another from Delhi School of Economics. And here at Jindal School, so by training, I'm actually an economist, economics plus public policy analyst, public policy. I'm not an expert as such. I would hate to use the word expert. Analyst, that is probably the best word. My area of research and area of interest is mainly public finance and government budgeting. Here at Jindal School, currently I teach statistics and data analysis for the MA Public Policy students, and also offer electives in a subject called econometrics. And previously, I have taught public finance for BA Economics students and also Introduction to Public Policy. This last semester, I was teaching microeconomics to the BA Economics students. So after a couple of years of offering public finance to the undergrads, I changed to microeconomics. And I was saying that my main area of interest is public finance and budgeting, and I'm also interested in the dynamics and change in public policy process and theories of public policy, and anything to do with data that excites me. So I'm basically an empirical researcher. Um, Theory tells me what to do, but I don't research in theory as such. Even when I work with theory, it is mainly to establish or de-establish a theory, to find evidence against theory through data. So, as you can see from the courses that I teach, mainly statistics and data analysis, and also econometrics, I am always around data. So the question is, you guys are coming from class 2 and joining a BA program, and the program is social science and policy. So one of the questions that you might have in mind that, okay, we have heard data is used in economics, but what does it have to do in political science or politics or sociology, all these other social science disciplines? Now, let's look at public policy as such, because ultimately it is social science and policy, your program. So in public policy, I don't know what your interest areas are, but these are some popular areas of interest of anybody who is interested in public policy: poverty, energy, education policy, health policy. Of course, health policy in today's world is, in last 1.5 years, we have suddenly woken up ourselves with a kick in our proverbial backside that health policy is an important thing. Uh, then, of course, water policy. We know that India, for example, in next 20 to 30 years is going to suffer from severe water crisis. So water policy, although it has not probably caught up our imagination yet, but it will be an important issue in future. Then, of course, the perennial issues of policy: gender, environment, and of course, if you are a little bit legal minded, then the rights of different types of people, rights of minorities, rights of immigrants, rights of citizens vis-a-vis the state. So all these are different types of areas of public policy. Now, out of this, the one that is in the 12 o'clock position, the poverty, that's probably has more to do with that. I would not say that has more to do with, but rather um, that is traditionally recognized as part of economics as such. But as we have recognized later on that poverty is not, or economics is not the only facet of poverty. There are different other facets as well. So anyway, so these are some just rudimentary and kind of high level look at public policy areas. And if you look at any of these areas, I don't know what your interest area is, but whatever it is, it can probably be captured in, most likely, in one of these domains. Now, in any of these domains, as a policy analyst or as a specialist in public policy, what is your task? What is your objective to do? If you want to emphasize that there is a problem, there is a public policy problem, then you need to establish that public is being affected by it. Just because one person is being affected and the issue has scope of affecting just one person doesn't make it a public policy issue. Either the issue has to affect many people, that is the public in general, or it must have the potential to affect many people. Only then it can be identified as a public policy problem. Now, to establish something as a public policy problem, what we need to show is that a large part of the population, or a sizable part of the population may be defined for the entire country or for a particular region, that's a different issue. But whatever way we define the population, many people within that population are being affected by that problem. Now, to do that, what we do is collect evidence, and in most of the times, or in most cases, this evidence will be numeric or data based. Now, of course, there can be qualitative data as well, and qualitative analysis is required there to understand the nuances of a problem, that what are the different facets of a problem. That is what qualitative analysis tells us. But then once we have understood what the nature of the problem is, to establish that many people are being affected by it, what are the different factors that are associated with the issue, these things can only be studied with data. And in recent times, there has been a kind of, I would not say resurgence or revolution, but people are talking more and more about evidence-based policy. And this evidence actually comes from data. So that's why we need data analysis. Now, let's look at a couple of public policy reports. Now, these are a couple of, public policy reports. I will come back to this slide a bit later. So these are two public policy reports from two very reputed public policy research organizations. One is CPPR, Center for Public Policy Research, which I think is in Cochin, most likely, if I am not entirely wrong. So the left-hand side report, the Economic Empowerment of Kerala's Fishermen, is from CPPR, Center for Public Policy and Research. It is in, I think, Cochin. And on the right-hand side, this is a discussion paper from an organization called Research and Information System for Developing Countries. It is in New Delhi. And they are also a very reputed organization. Now, I have just picked up these two reports from these two organizations randomly, completely randomly, to show you that in future, once you have done your BA SSP and then maybe an MA in public policy, and you are looking for your prospective employer, looking for jobs, or even during these programs when you are looking for internship, you are most likely to be go and work for one of these organizations. Not just these two, but there are many more, but these two are just representative of what is out there. So if you go there, and then the basic question is you need to see what they are doing. And if we look inside these programs, not programs, these reports, for example, if we look at this economic empowerment and of Kerala fishermen, the report from Center for Public Policy and Research, if we open any random page, we see that it's, of course, either full of prose or full of tables and graphs like this that I am showing on the right hand side. Now, you don't need to really pay attention to what exactly these tables and graphs tells you, but let me just tell you that on the left hand side, the prose that we have, that entire page of writing that we have, there are also a lot of numbers. Numbers, count of things, um, value of things in rupee terms, and stuff like that. And on the right hand side also there are issues, there are these graphs, and the table talks about those type of things. So what I'm trying to underline is that if you open any of these research reports or any of these reports, not only research, this can be a policy brief or a policy report, you will see that the arguments that are made, the way the policy issue is established, is through numbers, is through data. And these numbers do not come from heaven. People like you and me who are working in these organizations have to uh, sort through lots and lots of data and come up with these numbers which talks to the narrative, talks to the crux of the matter. And to be able to do that, I mean, as a policy analyst, as a student of social science and public policy, you need to learn how to do that. And because, as you can see, this is what we are supposed to do. Now, let me just show you the other one as well. This is the other report from research, I think Research and Information System in Developing Countries, RIS. And the report is Water and Sanitation, Common Issue, Achievement of Large Indian States. So they are also the achievements. As you can see, I have opened randomly the page 13 of this document. This is page 26 of the document. Again, there are some tables with numbers, or these numbers have been converted into two graphs. I mean, not necessarily these numbers that you can see in the left hand side page, but some numbers that has been analyzed by the analyst, the policy expert. They have created either this table to establish or to talk to us about the issue that they are talking, that is, what is the achievement of different large states in terms of water and sanitation in India. And either they have decided to present it as a table or as graphs, but ultimately it's all about data. So to establish things, to establish certain issues as policy problems, uh, we need data, and we need to be able to analyze data. And as you can see, data is ubiquitous. Now, this is not just policy, public policy. Even if you are interested in politics, in political science as such, if you open any current, recent research in political science or sociology, you will see that a large portion of those are talking about data. A common political science question, I'm just picking up a question from the top of my brain, is that, let's say, related to voting issues. Now, we know that many people do vote and many people decide not to go and vote. Now, what factors affect whether people decide to go and vote? Because voting is both a right as citizens of a democratic country and also a duty as citizens of a democratic country. Now, if there are factors that are inhibiting people from going and casting their vote, then we need to know what are those factors so that we can mitigate them, and people can exercise their democratic right and democratic duty. Now, that can only be studied through data. first, of course, we can interview some people to understand the dimension of the problem, but then we to establish that in general, what is the pattern of these factors that affect people's voting behavior, or what are the factors, to what extent, how to rank them, these different factors that affect people's decision to whether to go vote and not to vote. That ultimately comes from data. So the point that I'm trying to make is, in today's world, data is everywhere. Probably you have heard the mention of big data as well. Now, so when data is everywhere, we are trying to make sense of the world through data, and that can only be done through data analysis. Now, I think I don't exactly remember which semester in the BSSP program you were first introduced to the subject statistics and data analysis, but it's probably very soon, either in the first or the second semester, maybe second semester. I'm not entirely sure. You can check your brochures. So when you get to those subjects, don't be afraid of numbers. You may be afraid of numbers earlier, but when you go to those subjects, because you have come here to study these things, right? So don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to ask questions in the class, because that's the only way you can learn and also practice. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, when you go out into the world with these degrees, people will look at you and ask what you can do. And one of the things that you might be able to tell them is that you can do data analysis, and you can actually bring out the hidden meaning in data. And to be able to do that, you need to learn the things that we teach you. The main thing, of course, is data analysis and statistics. So what does data do for us? Data generally lets us, first of all, summarize what the issue, that is, whenever we have data, we can first of all study what is the characteristic of these few things that we have in hand. For example, if we want to study the, let's say, again, let's go back to that voting issue. Let's say we have collected information about 500 individuals. Some of them have voted and some of them have not voted. So the question is, first of all, we need to study, first of all, we need to calculate what proportion of the 500 people voted and what proportion did not vote. That is a summary of the data. Another summary of the data will be, what is the average age of those people? So what is the average age of the people who voted? What is the average age of the people who did not vote? And what is the average age of the people of all those 500 people? That is another summary. So the first task in data analysis is summarizing what we have. Then comes the analysis part. What is that analysis? Analysis is this thing that, what is analysis first of all? Analysis is connecting these different components and finding out their relationship. That is, I just told you that some people voted and some people did not vote. So let's connect them to their age. That is, what is the average age of people who voted and what is the average age of the people who did not vote? Is there a substantial difference in that? That is it true that, let's say, older people votes and younger people do not vote, or is it the other way around? Is there any trend there? Similarly, we can look at, let's say, income. If we can find out what is the income of these individuals, then we can find out what is the average income of the people who voted and what is the average income of the people who did not vote. So then we can study, is there a substantial difference in that? So connecting all these different factors to the issue of voting is what is analysis. So once you have done that fully, generally you will see that a story is emerging. You can relate, say that, okay, these are the factors, maybe income and gender are important issues in how people vote differently, but age is not. So that might be your story. Maybe education is also an important issue in determining whether people vote or not. So then we need to use the discipline of statistics to generalize this to the to entire population of India, because those 500 people is a very small number of people wherever we collected them from. It may be a single Lok Sabha constituency, or it may be a state assembly constituency. But then we need to, that is not just what we are interested in. We may be interested in the behavior of the people in the entire state, or maybe in the entire country. So we need to then use statistical theory to be able to generalize whatever we have found in our those 500 people to the population of the entire state, or to the population of the entire country. So this is the third part of data analysis, which is generalize. So summarize, analyze, and generalize. So these are the three things that data analysis lets us do. Now, what is our objective in teaching you guys these things? One is that, as I showed you, there are lots of reports out there from different research organizations, for different government organizations, from different government departments, and also universities and research centers in universities, which use data analysis and which in their report uses these different types of statistical measures. Now, you need to understand data analysis so that you can become critical consumers of those reports. It should not be a case where you look at those reports and just because they are numbers, you think that, okay, this must be the truth, quote unquote truth. No, people actually misuse and lie through data. So you should be able to identify when people are doing that. So whenever you are reading a report, unless and until you know what a particular statistical measure means, you won't be able to critically judge the usage of that measure in that report. Is it appropriate? Was it correctly done? Does it say what the author is saying? That is what your task as a critical consumer is. On the other hand, you are the budding policy analysts of tomorrow. You will be in the shoes of these policy analysts who are creating these reports tomorrow. So you will be creating these reports tomorrow. So when you are creating these reports, you need to be the honest producers of these reports. That is, the numbers that you produce should be honestly produced. Just because some issue is close to your heart, you should not lie about that issue through data. You should not obfuscate. You should not hide truth. So on one hand, you need to be critically judge other people's work. On the other hand, you need to be honest producers of your own work. And that you can only do if you are ethical data analysts. So what are the different aspects of critical consumption? Critical consumption of these data products are, first of all, as I was telling you, you have to understand different measures, whether some particular measure used in a report actually says what the author is saying. Secondly, of course, be aware that whether that is the best measure, or is there other measures available which could potentially substitute the number that the authors have talked about. And of course, always question the veracity of this. And as honest producers, what are you supposed to do? You are supposed to use the methods when they are appropriate. You need to be curious about the issue, and you need to be critical about your own work, because unless and until you are critical, you cannot identify the mistakes. And if you cannot identify the mistakes, someone else will. Therefore, you need to be critical producers of your own work as well. So on one hand, the reason you should learn data analysis is to be critical consumers of other people's data work, and on the other hand, to be honest producers yourselves. All right. So I will stop there because I think I have spoken a lot. It is 11:20, 11:40 almost, and you have 22 minutes at least in the scheduled time. So I will open the session to you guys if you have any question about whatever we have been talking till now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Nandini.
As we were talking about water, sir, like what kind of data do we collect? How it is affecting a particular region, or because we are talking about it should affect like multiple people. That is called a policy. You said that.
Yes.
And so, what kind of data do we
Not
collect?
policy. It's a policy problem.
Policy problem, right?
Policy problem. It can be a policy problem if it is a result of a policy itself, because many times the government takes a policy and that has unintended consequences and that affects people negatively, and then a policy creates a problem. However, many times it can be a problem as it is without any policy, and government does not have any policy about it. So we need government to have a policy about it. So it can be basically it should be a public problem. So a public problem can come up naturally, or it can be result of a policy. All right. So that's what I was talking about. Now your question is that what type of data? Now that depends on what question you have. Are you interested in the water issue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Give me some question, or at least one question that you want to study. Then I can actually, that will give me an concrete example, and I can actually talk about it, and I can probably tell you what type of data you will need for that purpose.
If we say a region, people from a particular region are facing some water scarcity or some kind of that kind of problem, then we have to collect the data like of the region, or it is only like if we consider it, do we consider it a problem, or it has to affect a like more larger region?
No. Even if it is, let's say, a very good example, even if it is just, let's say, a locality of Sonipat, let's say just sector 12 of Sonipat, suddenly the councillor of Sonipat has to establish that this is a problem. So the policy can be at the very small level of a city, like a town like Sonipat. So if you have to establish that there is water scarcity in sector 12 of Sonipat, then number one, you have to identify how do you. What is happening? Some random messages are popping up from MS Teams. Anyway, sorry. So first of all, you have to define what is water scarcity. Let's say, I mean, I'm taking a caricature example. Let's say 1 bucket of water per day is sufficient by some definition. For a per head. All right. So then you need to collect data about every family. Not every family, that is a wrong thing, sorry. First of all, sector 12 in Sonipat is a big place. So what you need to do is, first of all, identify some randomly chosen families in Sonipat, in sector 12, and then collect information about their water, how much water they are receiving. Then you have to establish that, okay, it is less than 1 bucket per person per day. Then you have established that, okay, it is a problem in sector 12. Now 1 bucket is of course a caricature example. There will be definitely some other quantity that is considered sufficient, and anything less than that per head will be considered a problem. So when you are trying to establish that it is a problem in sector 12, definitely you are going to collect data from sector 12, but depending on the granularity of the problem, that is, we are defining that it is water availability per family. So what we have to collect data is about each the families that we identify from whom we are going to collect the data. All right. So ultimately that will be aggregated at the sector 12 level. That is, we will, let's say, we collect data about 15 families. So then we will calculate on an average how much water these families are getting per head per day. So that aggregate measure, that aggregate average measure is about sector 12. But the data that we collected was about families. From that, we use statistics and data analysis methods to come to that number that tells us how much, on an average, how much water each family is getting per head per day. If that is significantly or substantially lower than the norm, then it is a public problem. Got that? Or does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Or is there anything else?
Yes, sir.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sir, I wanted to ask you, since you are an equally proficient person in economics as well as public policy, collecting data,
I don't know about that.
I mean, you are a
Okay.
person who is very common with both the fields, right, sir?
Yeah, I
So
have seen both the fields. Yes.
yes, sir. So I wanted to ask you, since collection of data, though a very important part of forming public policy, it is not only very expensive, it's very hard to collect data as well. It's a very, it's an
Yeah,
expensive as well as a lengthy process.
yes, of course.
So, speaking as two persons, an economist as well as a public policy person, why would you suggest collecting more and more data, as it's more, economically, the more data you collect, the more you're spending than actually using it to make actual change. So, why, how can we solve that contradiction?
If I have understood your question correctly,
Yes,
what you are saying is that collection of data, collecting data is a costly endeavor.
yes, and it's a very lengthy process, and
Yes.
it's not sure that we'll get the desired result at the end as well.
Now the question is a good point. What do you mean by desired result?
Sir, desired result, I mean, it's the actual thing what's happening should be represented in the data. It's not always that the data we collect is the actual representation of the situation there.
Yes, it is.
Not always, no, sir. To do it perfectly accurate, it's a very lengthy process and it's very expensive. And government agencies generally do not do that.
But we do not. Okay. Just because something is difficult doesn't mean that we shall not do it. Um,
Yes, sir.
Mirabai Chanu won the silver medal in um, weightlifting.
Yes, sir.
Weightlifting is not a very easy task, is it?
Yes.
India won the 2015 Cricket World Cup.
Yes.
Playing cricket is not a very easy task, is it?
Yes. But my
But we
only
did not.
point is that,
No, point.
yes,
Just wait.
yes,
We did not won the World Cup in any of the years between 1983 and 2015. Sorry, 2011. Sorry, not
11, yes,
2015. 2011.
yes,
11 or 15?
11,
11.
sir.
11, yeah. In none of the years from 1983 till 2011, we did not won other than that 2007 T20I. But let's put that
Yes, sir.
aside. Let's talk about just one thing because that will keep the discussion simple.
Yes,
So that did not mean that we stopped playing ODI cricket altogether
yes,
because we are not winning.
yes, sir.
So that's just an analogy that I'm trying to bring. But what I'm trying to make the point is that just because something is difficult doesn't mean that we won't do it.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Now, yes, data collection is a very costly process, and we need a lot of money to do data collection. But you are wrong in that point. Up to that point, you are absolutely correct. The data collection is a lengthy process, and data collection is a costly process. Whether you go to collect data by interviewing people, or whether you go to government departments and look at government documents and collect data. Many government documents are available online nowadays, so that probably is not that costly. But if you are actually going to look for
primary data,
not primary data, even in government documents, it is not necessary that you have data about each and every what we call granularity. That is, let's say at the gram panchayat level. At the gram panchayat level, gram panchayat documents are definitely not available online. So if you want to study certain things at the gram panchayat level of government documents, you have to go to those gram panchayats, and that will be, as you are saying, will be a very costly and time-consuming process. You are absolutely right there, but you are not right in saying that that will not represent the correct scenario. If your data collection
that was not my point, sir. My point is it's a catch-22. It's very expensive, which is making the data collection process harder, which is making the public policy analysis harder. So what is the solution for this contradiction? Is there a how do we solve this? What's the middle point in this?
There is no middle point. If the data is out there, you need to collect that data if you want to study it. I mean, there is no other.
But what if we cannot afford studying that? Given the current economic situation, we cannot spend too much money into collecting data and researching it.
I don't think even in the current situation, we are in a scenario where we cannot afford to collect data. In fact, it is in the current scenario that we need to collect more data. And well, till now I have been agreeing with you up to a point that yes, data collection is an expensive and long drawn process, but it is not so expensive that either at the individual level we cannot of course afford to do it, but at the research organization level or at a government level we cannot collect it. That is not true at all. It is not that costly. I mean, government is collecting. There is an organization called NSS, so I'm not sure whether you know it or not. National Sample Survey Organization. Every year they carry out at least 3 to 4 different types of surveys. So their budget is for that, and it is not just government NSSO. There are private organizations which also collect data to sell that data. So yes, it is costly, but it is not prohibitively costly. And actually, you know, it's a good, actually you raise the point. When you study data analysis and actually the discipline of statistics a little, you will see that there are ways to minimize that cost. And that is why, let's say we want to study an issue in the state of Andhra Pradesh, but that doesn't mean we have to go and collect data about each and every person in Andhra Pradesh. Depending on how much money we have, depending on how much resources and time frame we have, we will suitably choose few people from whom we will collect the data. Now, this suitable choice of these few people is a sub-discipline of statistics. It is called sampling. So for last, I think sampling, for how many years sampling is there? At least for last 60 years, 70 years, maybe even more. This discipline of sampling is being developed by statisticians. So even if you want to study something about the state of Andhra, you can actually just collect data maybe from 2,000 to 3,000 individuals in Andhra. And that will give you a clear enough picture on which you can actually create actionable policy. Now comes the other issue, whether the government is going to use that information. That is, we do not have any control about. That government is not going to do anything about a particular issue even after it has been established that it is a public policy problem. That's a completely different issue. That is the realm of politics. That is where we need to be more forceful with our representatives so that they can pick up this issue. So that there are different facets to your question. First of all, it is costly, but it is also not that much costly that we cannot do it. Yes, we can do it, and that is why government does it. These different research organization and foundations fund those research organizations. For example, a very common example, Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. They put money into these research organizations so that they can study problems. So money is there. Money is not a problem. It is not so severe that money is not there. But the last point, that is whether the and in the middle there is also that issue that which you said you were not mentioning, or rather you were not referring to, but still I want to refer to. If your sampling method, that is if you have suitably your choice of individuals or choice of families or choice of data points from which you are collecting data is good enough, then definitely it will portray the correct picture. And how to do that is how you can learn, what you can learn from data analysis and statistics. Then the last issue is that after doing all this, you have put up your report, and that report has established something as a public policy problem very vociferously and very vehemently, but the government is not doing anything about that. That is a different topic. That is not a discussion of data analysis. That is a discussion of persuasion. That is a discussion about how to persuade our representatives to pick up these issues. That is not what the subject matter of data analysis or statistics is all about. Got that?
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Yes, I wanted to ask one more thing.
Sure.
So for data analysis, so when we are talking about energy, are you referring to energy distribution? Like, for example, the state of the Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. So it has a huge power plant, and it is sending energy to multiple regions in Rajasthan. So do we analyze how much power a region wants and like analyze that? Are you referring to that when we talk about energy?
I'm referring to everything. Now, what do I mean by that? What I'm talking about, it depends on what my research question is. Energy is just an area. Now, whether it is, depends on what you, again, depends on what your research question is. If you are interested to study the distribution, then it will be energy distribution. If you want to study energy generation, then it will be energy generation. If you want to study lack of energy, for example, you are in Sonipat, right? I'm not, I don't know whether you know it or not, but the villages around Sonipat only gets around 6 to 8 hours of electricity per day. So that is a lack of electricity or lack of energy. Now, by energy, right now I am only talking about electricity. It need not be electricity. It can be other things as well. So I do not know what I'm talking about when I'm mentioning energy. Energy is a broad area. It can be generation. It can be the sources of energy. It can be the lack of energy. It can be demand of energy. It can be supply of energy. It can be distribution of energy. It can be problems in any of those. It can be how energy is, the generation of energy is affecting the environment. So it all depends on what you want to study. So data analysis is not done in a vacuum. You have to first establish a research question. Only when you have established a question, or there is some question that you want to study, only then you can talk about what type of data you want to collect. So all those points that I had around the circle, public policy, each of those just talked about broad areas. They did not specifically talked about what particular information you are going to study or you are going to collect. That all comes from what your question is. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Anything else? All right. I think since only two of you are here, you have exhausted your questions. So again, welcome to our BSSP program. Although I will not teach you this semester anything, maybe at some point of time, if the campus opens, we shall be able to meet. And stay safe. So have a nice day, and great talking to you too.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Thank you.
Thank you.